Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the prelims crash course, the free prelims crash course that Civil Service Achievers Point is coming up with. And but today we will be talking about. Today we will be, you guys might be remembering the things which we had talked about in our last class, that is yesterday. Today we will just carry on from that particular portion. In our last class, if you remember, we had talked about a few important questions. We had talked about a few important questions which were asked in previous year's question papers, which were asked in previous year's question papers by UPSC. Today, we will just continue from that part, and today we will also look into some of the most important questions which were asked by UPSC in the past years. Now, yesterday we did talk about a few questions which are related to Indus Valley civilization. Now we will carry on. I mean, as you can see in this particular slide, that is question number 4. The question is, which of the following characterizes the people of Indus civilization? Okay, which of the following characterizes the people of Indus civilization? It was asked in 2013. I mean, as you can see here, it was asked in 2013. Now, these are the options which have been given here. Okay, option number 1, they possessed great palaces and temples. That is, the people of Indus Valley civilization, they had great palaces and temples. That is one. Then the second point which has been given here is they worship both male and female deities. That is number 2. And the third is they employed horse-drawn chariots in warfare. Now the question which has been asked is select the correct statement or statements using the codes given below. 1 and 2 only, 2 only, 1, 2 and 3, and D is none of the statements given above is correct. Now, let's go through each of the statements one by one. See, they possess great palaces and temples. Now, this cannot be the right answer because we know for a fact that the people of Indus Valley civilization, they did not live in palaces. Okay, they did not live in palaces. They did not live in they did not live in palaces. In fact, we know, we know very. Although we know a lot about Indus Valley civilization, we can actually learn. Okay, we can actually a lot more about Indus Valley civilization if we someday decode the script which was being used by the people of IVC. Okay, Indus Valley civilization is also known as IVC. But unfortunately, we have not been able to crack the or decode the script or the language which was being used by the people of IVC. Because of that, we cannot say much about the people. So, for most part of what we know about IVC, we simply rely on excavations, archaeological excavations. And one thing has become very clear from those excavations that the people of Indus Valley, at that time, the concept of palace was not there. Okay, people of IVC, they did not have palaces or they did not live in palaces. Okay, the concept of palace, it became a bit common starting from the time of the Vedic period, especially later Vedic period. And temples. See, Indus Valley people were not into the temple form of worship. In fact, as per several historians, the temple form of worship, the temple mode of worship, it started somewhere. I mean, it became very, very popular only under the Guptas, the temple mode of worship. Okay, before then, the fact that people have to go to a particular place to worship their gods and goddesses was not very popular in India. So, statement A cannot be correct that they possess great palaces and temples because in IVC, the temple concept was yet to become popular. Then, number 2, they worship both male and female deities. Now, this is a true statement that they worship both male and female deities. If we have to give the example of a male deity, then the best example would be something which we have discussed yesterday also. It would be the Pashupati seal, and which deity has been depicted in the Pashupati seal. He is none other, as per many historians, he is none other than Lord Shiva. Okay, because he has a lot of comparisons. Okay, one could make a lot of comparisons between him and uh, Lord Shiva. So that is the example of a male deity. And if we have to talk about female deities, did they worship female deities? Then we will have to talk about the terracotta figurines of Mother Goddess. Okay, during the excavations which I was talking about, during the archaeological excavations, we have come across many such terracotta figurines of Mother Goddess. Okay, what is this terracotta figurine of Mother Goddess? It is simply a terracotta figure. Okay, terracotta, like I said yesterday, terracotta means clay. So these figures have been made of clay, and these figures are of a female deity wearing a headgear and a lot of ornaments and a lot of ornaments. Not just that, in some of these terracotta figurines, some of these terracotta figurines, a sapling has been shown coming out of the navel. A sapling has been shown coming out of the navel of the female deity, which makes it very clear that the cult of worshipping the Mother Earth was prevalent among the people of IVC. So, going by that, we can easily say that the people of IVC worship both male and female deities. And the third statement is they employed horse-drawn chariots. Now, the third statement is that they employed horse-drawn chariots. The third statement is that the people of IVC that they employed horse-drawn chariots. Now, this again cannot be, the right statement. This again cannot be the right statement because we know it for a fact. Okay, we know it for a fact that people of IVC, we know it for a fact that horses, okay, we know it for a fact that horses were introduced, and as per most of the historians, they say horses were introduced in the Indian subcontinent by the Aryans. So, if horses were introduced in the Indian subcontinent by the Aryans, then the Indus Valley civilization's people could not have employed horse drawn chariots in warfare. So, statement number three also cannot be correct, which means the correct answer to this would be statement number only one statement is correct. That is, they worship both male and female deities. So, the correct answer is B, that is two only. Okay, they worship both male and female deities. Now, moving on to the next question. Okay, now we will talk about questions which are related to the Vedic age. A very, very important part of Indian history is Vedic age. So, Vedic age is mostly about the Vedas. Another very important part of Vedic age is the Vedic literature. Okay, and Vedic literature can broadly be divided into two categories. One is Shruti, the other is Smriti. Okay, now if I have to give certain examples of the Shruti form of Vedic literature, then under Shruti form of Vedic literature will come the Vedas, the Aranyakas, the Upanishads, and the Brahmanas. And under the Smriti form of Vedic literature will come kinds of literature like, for example, the epics, Mahabharata and the Ramayana, the Puranas, okay, the Shaddarshan, the Vedangas, all these will come under the Smriti part of the Vedic literature. Anyway, so Vedic age is very, very important. Vedic age is also important because as I was saying yesterday, Vedic age itself can be divided into two parts: early Vedic and later Vedic period. And during the most important thing, one of the most important things which we have to know about the Vedic period is the changes one gets to see from early Vedic to later Vedic. Okay, there are many changes, and changes are in various areas. For example, changes happen even in the sphere of religion. Okay, why am I saying this? Because during the Rig Vedic period, the most important god for the Vedic people was Lord Indra. But Indra loses his popularity by the time we reach the later Vedic period. So this way, many changes happen. Okay, many changes happen, and so now we will look into some of the questions which have been asked from this important part of Indian history, that is the Vedic age. Now, see, the river, this question was asked in the year 1996. Okay, it was asked in the year 1996 that the river most mentioned in early Vedic literature is the river most mentioned in early Vedic literature is A. Sindhu, B. Sutudri, C. Saraswati, and D. Ganga. Okay, now the answer would be A. Sindhu. Okay, Sindhu, see, Sindhu is the same, Sindhu is the English name for Sindhu is Indus. Okay, today we call this river Indus. Now, see, the river most mentioned in early Vedic literature. Now, the word most mentioned has been given. Okay, the river most mentioned has been given in this question. Now, The two most important rivers, okay, we get to hear of two rivers very frequently in the early Vedic literature. Those two rivers are, one is Saraswati, the other is Sindhu. Now Saraswati, talking about Saraswati, Saraswati was considered as it was considered as the holiest of the rivers. Saraswati at that time was considered to be the holiest of the rivers, and it is said that according to mythology, and also many historians, okay, many historians, ascribe to this view that most of the verses, okay, most of the verses of the Vedas were composed on the banks of this river Saraswati. Okay, most of the verses of the Vedas were composed on the banks of this river Saraswati. But another river we get to hear about a lot in the Vedas is Sindhu. And although Saraswati has been described as the most important of the rivers, but the river that we get to hear, okay, the river that we come across, the name of the river which we get to hear most number of times is Sindhu. Okay, Sindhu is the river which we get to hear frequently in the Vedas. So the answer would be Sindhu. Okay, now moving on to the next question, which was asked in the year 1999. The term, the term Aryan denotes, okay, the term Aryan, as we know, Rig Veda or the Vedic period is also, the Vedic period, who started the Rig Vedic culture, who started the Vedic culture in India? The Vedic culture was brought to India by the Aryans. Aryans were the ones who brought the Vedic culture to India. Okay, they were the ones who brought the Vedic culture to India. And now the question is, what does the term Aryan denotes? What does the term Aryan denote? That is the question. And the options are an ethnic group, a nomadic people, a speech group, a superior race. Now, see, this has been debated upon. Okay, this has been debated upon time and again. Now, historians vastly agree. Okay, historians vastly agree to one thing, that is the term Aryan. It refers to a group of people who were speaking a particular language or dialect. Okay, the term Aryan, it doesn't denote. There was a misconception prevailing among Indians as well as foreigners all this while, that the term Aryan denotes, or it talks about a special race. It talks about a special race which is superior. I mean, even even world famous personalities like Hitler, okay, even they were the victim of this misconception. Even he thought Aryan was a race, and he promoted this conception. He himself thought that he belonged to he belonged to a much superior race, and he called that. I mean, he was also a believer in this concept of Aryan denoting a superior race. But now that has been discarded by historians. Now we all agree to one thing, that the term Aryan denotes what it denotes, or it refers to a special group of people who were using one particular language or dialect. So the term Aryan does not denote an ethnic group. It doesn't denote a nomadic people. It doesn't mean, a superior race. It means what? A speech group. So term Aryan. Option number C, as you can see here, answer C is the right answer. Okay. Now the next question was asked in 2004. This question was asked in the year 2004, and the question was, which one of the following four Vedas? Which one of the following four Vedas contains an account of magical charms and spells? Now, the names of the four Vedas have been given here: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, and Samved. See, Rig Veda. What does Rig Veda contain? Rig Veda contains 1028 hymns in praise of, the gods and goddesses of the Aryans, of the various Aryan tribes. Okay, Rigved contains the hymns which were composed in honor of the gods and goddesses of the Aryan people, of the various Aryan tribes. That is Rigved. What is the speciality? What is the speciality about Yajurved? Yajurved, and by the way, one more thing, Rigved is also known as the first. It is also known as what? It is also known as what? A very it is Rigved is very important. It is also known as the first testament of mankind. Okay, You might have come across this word called Old Testament, New Testament. Okay, Bible and the Holy Book of Judaism is known as Old Testament. Okay, Bible is also known as New Testament. Now, Rig Veda, on the other hand, is known as the first testament of mankind. Okay, it is considered to be the first religious book to be written by mankind. First religious book to be written by mankind, by and large, Rig Veda is considered to be the first religious book to be composed by mankind. Although I'm using the term written, we have to be very clear about one thing. The Vedas, when they were composed during the Rig Vedic age, when they were I mean, if you talk about Rig Veda, if you talk about the later Vedas, when all the Vedas were composed during the Vedic age. Okay, during the Vedic age, when they were composed, they were not written down at the time. They were written down much later. Okay, they were written down much later. And once they were composed, once the verses of these Vedas were composed, they were passed down to the generations. They were passed down to the later generations via oral tradition because India has had a very strong oral tradition. So they were passed down to the later generations verbally or orally. Anyway, so Rig Veda contains 1028 hymns which were composed by various Aryan tribes in praise of their gods and goddesses. That was Rig Veda. What was Yajur Veda? So and by the way, one more thing which I told about Rig Veda is it is also known as the first testament of mankind. Yajur Veda is also known as the book of rituals. Why? Because Yajur Veda talks a lot about the rituals. What kind of rituals and where were those rituals supposed to be performed? Yajurveda talks about those rituals which had to be performed while chanting the verses of the Rig Veda. Okay, remember the verses which were, which are present in the Rig Veda. Now those verses are supposed to be chanted. Okay, those verses are supposed to be chanted, and Yajurveda talks about the rituals. Yajurveda talks about the rituals which are supposed to be performed. Okay, these are rituals, and rituals are performed. Okay, rituals are not chanted, rituals are performed. So Yajurveda talks about the rituals which are supposed to be performed while chanting the verses of the Rig Veda. Okay, that is Yajurveda. What is Samaved? Samaved, Samaved is also considered to be, the first book on music. Samaved is also considered to be the first book of music. Why? Because Samaved has, I mean, although it does not have a direct connection with the kind of music we get to hear of today, but it has a strong connection with music in general. And music, many people believe that music can be traced back. The genesis of music, okay, the genesis of music lies in Samved. Why? Because Samved, what is the speciality about Samved? Samved talks about the tone, or Samved talks about the rhythm. Samved, it talks about the rhythm which has to be maintained. Okay, the rhythm or the musical tone which has to be maintained while chanting the verses of the Rig Veda. So these three Veds talk about three different things and they serve three different purposes. Now we are left with only one Veda, that is Atharva Veda. Atharva Veda is slightly different from the other three Vedas. See, Yajurved and Samaved are they are offshoots of Rig Veda. What do I mean by offshoot? They are directly related to Rig Veda. They have come out of Rig Veda. Had the Rig Veda not been there, Yajurved and Samved also would not have been there. But the case is not the same with Atharva Veda. Atharva Veda is slightly different from the three other Vedas. Okay, in what respect? Because Atharva Veda, if you read Atharva Veda, you will find that Atharva Veda is the result of a lot of interaction. Okay, it is actually the result of a lot of interaction which was happening between the Aryan and the non-Aryan tribes. See, when the Aryan tribes came to India, okay, it is widely believed that the Aryans came from Central Asian steppes to India. So when they came to India, India was already inhabited by a lot of people, by the indigenous people. Okay, I mean, India was already well populated. Now, India was already well populated, and some people were already living in India. Now, those people were not Aryans because they were speaking a different language. So when the Aryans came to India, slowly and steadily, okay, slowly and steadily, I mean, according to historians, there were moments of hostility as well as peace. Okay, one cannot deny that there was no there was not a single moment of hostility. According to historians, there have been moments of hostility as well as there have been moments of peace. So there have been moments of interaction also. There have been moments of interaction also between the Aryan tribes and between the non-Aryan tribes which were already living in India before the arrival of the Aryans. Samaved is a, I'm so sorry, Atharva Ved is a result of just that. Atharva Ved is a result of a lot of interaction which happened between the Aryan tribes and the non-Aryan tribes. How can we say that? Because in Atharva Ved, you will come across a lot of things. You will come across a lot of things which are considered to be non-Aryan, which are considered to be non-Aryan or which go against the original beliefs of the Aryan people. Okay, for example, in Atharva Veda, you will get, charms. Okay, you will get, you will get, Atharva Veda talks about certain things like black magic. Atharva Veda talks about magical spells. Atharva Veda talks about various talismans. Atharva Veda talks about various amulets. Amulets means tabis and all. The tabis, what is the function of those amulets? It talks about amulets because according to Atharva Veda, amulets protect us from, for example, evil eye. So Atharva Veda is slightly different from the other three Vedas because in Atharva Veda, you get to see a lot of what? You get to see a lot of non-Aryan influence in Atharva Veda, which goes to show that Atharva Veda was a result of a you can say of a of a lot of interaction which was happening between the Aryan and the non-Aryan tribes. So the answer to this question would be Atharva Veda. Because the question was, which one of the following four Vedas contains an account of magical charms and spells? So the answer would be Atharva Veda. Okay. Now, coming to the next question. The religion of early Vedic Aryans was primarily of the religion of early Vedic Aryans was primarily of A. Bhakti, B. Image worship and yajnas, worship of nature and yajnas, and worship of nature and bhakti. Now, see, in order to answer this question, you have to know the meaning of terms like bhakti. And by the way, in Indian history, there's a separate topic called bhakti movement, okay, wherein we need to talk about bhakti leaders, okay, wherein we need to talk about several bhakti saints, okay. So, what is the meaning of bhakti? Bhakti in English, as we all must be knowing, it means devotion. It means devotion. But then why do we say that why bhakti cannot be the right answer? Bhakti, it does not simply mean devotion. It means selfless devotion. Bhakti means selfless devotion. What is the meaning of selfless devotion? Selfless devotion is that kind of devotion. Selfless devotion is that kind of devotion where you do not expect anything in return for the amount of love you are showering upon your God. Okay, suppose you are extremely devoted to Lord Sri Krishna. You are extremely devoted to Lord Sri Krishna, but you are not expecting anything in return. You love him very much. You love him very much, but you are not expecting anything in return. You are not asking for any benefits from him. Okay, in exchange for the love that you are showering upon him. This is okay a very good example of bhakti, selfless devotion. And why bhakti cannot be the right answer? Because we know it for a fact, because according to many historians, people during the time of the Vedic period, okay, people during the time of the Vedic period, and this thing remains constant in early Vedic as well as later Vedic, that they mainly worshipped for material possessions. Okay, what do we mean by that? They mainly worship for material possessions. Whenever they worship, they worship their gods and goddesses. For example, they worship their gods and goddesses. When they worship their gods and goddesses, they prayed for male. They prayed for a son. They prayed for prosperity. They prayed for more and more cattle. If we talk about the early Vedic period, they prayed for cattle. They prayed for, but they mainly prayed for son, because the son was supposed to carry on the legacy. That thing was there among the people of the Vedic period. So, to cut a long story short, they worship gods and goddesses for material possessions. That is not bhakti. Okay, that is not bhakti. So, bhakti cannot be the right answer. Then image worship and yajnas. Now see, image worship was by and large, it was not popular among the, it was not popular in the early Vedic, it was not popular among the early Vedic Aryans. Okay, image worship and yajnas was not popular among the early Vedic Aryans. Okay, the early Vedic Aryans were simple people. They just worshipped what? They just worshipped. It is said by historians that the early Vedic Aryans worshipped forces of nature. They worship forces of nature, and they started personifying forces of nature. For example, they worship what did I say? Forces of nature, and they started personifying. What is the meaning of personifying? When you give a force of nature a human angle. Okay, it would be personification of that force of nature. For example, they personified rain, and they started giving him the name of giving rain the name of Lord Indra. Okay, for example, they personified Agni. Okay, they personified fire and began to worship fire in the form of Lord Agni. Okay, for example, they personified storm and they began to worship storm in the form of Marut. Okay, so in this manner, you know, in this manner, they worship various forces of nature. Okay, in this manner, they worship various forces of nature and they went on personifying those forces of nature, that is, giving them a human form. So, the early Aryans who came to India, they were worshippers of nature. And at the same time, they also perform yajnas. Okay, so statement or option number three would be the right answer. Option number D also says worship of nature, but at the same time, it says bhakti. And the bhakti element was absent among the early Vedic Aryans. So option D cannot be the right answer. So right answer would be option C. Now, let's come back. Let's come to another question which was asked in the year 2017, and the question was with reference to the difference between the culture of Rig Vedic Aryans and Indus Valley people, which of the following statements is or are correct? Okay, let's go through the statements now. Rig Vedic Aryans used a coat of mail and helmet in warfare, whereas the people of Indus Valley civilization did not leave any evidence of using them. Okay. Two, Rigvedic Aryans knew gold, silver, and copper, whereas Indus Valley people knew only copper and iron. Third, Rigvedic Aryans had domesticated the horse, whereas there is no evidence of Indus Valley people having been aware of this animal. Okay, point number three is very important. Rigvedic Aryans had domesticated the horse, whereas there is no evidence of Indus Valley people having been aware of this animal. Always keep one thing in mind. The people of IVC, horse was not a popular animal among the people of IVC. Of course, I mean, we have found evidences of horse bones, but even those evidences one cannot say for sure, because according to some historians, those evidences are not of horse bones, but they belong to a creature which is similar to a horse but not horse bones. But let's say even if those horse bonds, or even if those bonds, okay, even if those bones, I mean, let's say even if those bones belong to horse, okay, let's say even if those bones belong to horse, we cannot say that horses were very, very common among the Indus Valley civilizations people. Okay, let's say those bones belong to horses, but even then we cannot say that horse was a very popular animal, because by and large, it is a well accepted fact that horses, the Indus Valley people, were not quite aware of this animal. Had they been aware of this animal, given the significance and importance horses have, okay, they would have. I mean, they would have. I personally believe they would have given a place. Okay, they would have given the horse a place in the Pashupati seal among the other four animals. But one cannot see horse in that Pashupati seal. Okay, one can see only four animals: tiger, rhinoceros, buffalo, and elephant. And it is a fact that horses, like I was saying a short while ago, horses were introduced in the Indian subcontinent by the Aryans, by the Rigvedic Aryans. Okay, so one thing is for sure. Point number three. is correct. Okay, point number three is correct. Now let's talk about point number one. Rigvedic Aryans used a coat of mail and helmet in warfare, whereas the people of Indus Valley civilization did not leave any evidence of using them. It is also a correct statement because we know it for a fact that Rigvedic Aryans they used a coat of mail and helmet, but Indus Valley people they did not leave any evidence of using them. See, this is a very interesting part of the statement that till now we have not found any evidence. Tomorrow we may found, tomorrow till now we haven't found any evidence. Tomorrow we may find an evidence which may suggest, okay, which may suggest that people of IVC also use the coat of mail and helmet. But as of now, like I was saying, most of the information that we know about Indus Valley civilization, most of the information that we know about Indus Valley civilization, we know it from archaeological excavations, which keep on happening every now and then. So, what we know today may not be enough tomorrow, or what we know today, or what we consider today as authentic and true, might be proven false tomorrow. It all depends on what kind of excavations are being carried out by archaeologists. Okay, but as of now, we know that statement number one is also correct. Now, Rigvedic Aryans, statement number two, knew gold, silver, and copper, whereas Indus Valley people knew only copper and iron. Now, see, this cannot be the correct answer. Now, this cannot be this cannot be the correct answer. Why this cannot be the correct answer? Why this cannot be the correct answer? This cannot be the correct answer because, just give me a second. I'll pull out the question once again. So select the correct answer using the code given below. The options are one only. One only cannot be the correct answer because we already know that statement number three is also correct. So one only cannot be the correct answer. Now let's look at the other options. The other options are 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, and 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3 cannot be the right answers. So 1 and, when as you can see, 1 and 3 only. 1 is, like I said, coat of mail and helmet, and 3 is that, I mean, the horse factor. So point number, like I was saying, statement number 2 is not correct. Why it is not correct? Because we know it for a matter of fact that iron began to be used in India only around 1000 BC. I mean, recently, of course, recently, I think the last year, a discovery was made, which, which which pushes back, and that discovery was made somewhere in South India that pushes back the Iron Age in India. But by and large, as of now, we have to go by what the most historians say, that Iron Age began somewhere around 1000 BC in India. Before that, the Indians did not know about iron. Okay, so because Indians came to know about iron only around 1000 BC, so the people of Indus Valley civilization could not have known about iron. So because of that, answer C is the right answer. Now, coming back to this question, which was asked in 2011, the Dharma and Rita depict a central idea of ancient Vedic civilization. I mean, Dharma and Rita, these are two words which are found in Vedas. And the Dharma and Rita, they depict a central idea of ancient Vedic civilization of India. Okay, in this context, consider the following statements. It was asked in the year 2011. It was asked in the year 2011. Number one is what? Number one is Dharma. It was a conception of obligations and the discharge of one's duties to oneself and to others. This is correct. Okay, dharma means what? The various duties and responsibilities that you are supposed to perform. Okay, dharma. Dharma, it talks about the various responsibilities and duties you are supposed to perform. Okay, even the Dharma Shastras talk about this. And Rita means what? Rita was the fundamental moral law. It was the fundamental moral law governing the functioning of the universe and all it contained. Okay, it was the fundamental moral law. It was the fundamental moral law governing the functioning of the universe. Okay, functioning of the universe and all it contained. Okay, whereas Dharma dealt with obligations and responsibilities that the people had to perform. So, We can say that both the statements are correct. So the answer would be C, both 1 and 2. Okay. Now, coming back to this question, asked in the year 1997. 1997, there is the famous dialogue. Okay, the famous dialogue between Nachiketa and Yama is mentioned in, okay, Chandogya Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Kathopanishad, and Kenopanishad. And the right answer to this would be Kathopanishad. See, now what is Upanishad? All these are, I mean, all the four names which you can see here, all these are four different types of Upanishads. In total, there are 10, in total, there are 108 Upanishads. Upanishads, what is the significance of Upanishads? See, Upanishads, like I was saying, they're also a part. Okay, Upanishads are also, I mean, like the Vedas, Upanishads are also a part of the Shruti category of Vedic literature. But Upanishads are they are distinctly different from the Vedas. They are similar, you can say they are similar to Aranyakas. They are one step ahead of the Aranyakas. So they have some similarity with the Aranyakas, but they are not quite the same as Vedas and the Brahmanas. What is the central theme of Upanishads? The central theme of Upanishads, actually we owe, Indian civilization owes a lot to Upanishads. Indian civilization owes a lot to Upanishads because I'll tell you a few things which we find in Upanishads for the very first time and which are in use still today. For example, the concept of rebirth, the concept of rebirth, okay, the concept of rebirth can be traced back to Upanishad. Okay, the concept of karma, because Hinduism believes in the concept of karma. Okay, karma, that is actions determine results. Okay, what you do, I mean, what you do, so depending on what you sow, so you reap, as the famous English saying goes, what you sow, so you reap. So karma means what? I mean, karma is a very popular theme. Okay, karma is gaining more and more popularity among the youth even today. Okay, we hear of many phrases like what goes around comes around. Okay, karma is for real. This karma can be traced back to Upanishad. Upanishads is the place where we come across this word for the very first time. So just imagine something which was started by Upanishads so many centuries ago. Okay, around almost, I mean, more than 2 millennia ago, it was coined by Upanishads. This was given by the Upanishads. That thing has become so popular. That thing is even popular today. So that is the importance of Upanishads. In the mains also you can be asked this question regarding the significance of Upanishads. Then you can write about these things. Okay, then you can actually write about these things, especially karma, because karma is growing more and more popular, especially among the youth. It is quite amazing. The young generation of this country is giving so much importance to something which was, you know, which was devised more than 2 millennia ago. The concept of karma. Okay, now apart from it, Upanishads are also very, very important because Upanishads deal with the relationship between God and human beings, or in other words, they deal with the relationship between, they talk about the relationship between Atma and Paramatma. Okay, they talk about the relationship between God and soul. Okay, Upanishads are very, very important. And Upanishads, to cut a long story short, if you have to say the significance of Upanishads in Vedic literature, then, or significance of Upanishads in Hinduism, then you can say that the philosophical Upanishads are considered to be the philosophical basis of Hinduism. Upanishads are considered to be the philosophical basis of Hinduism. They deal with Hindu philosophy. And please keep this thing in mind. Any religion, be it any religion, a religion cannot become popular without philosophy. A religion has to have philosophy in it to become popular. See, okay, a religion, pick up any major religion in the world, they always have philosophies. They always have a part which deals with philosophies. I mean, there are various parts which go on to form a religion, right? So, philosophical part of a religion is also very, very important. I mean, For example, philosophical part, okay, philosophical part of Hinian form of Buddhism is Abhidhamma Pitaka. Abhidhamma Pitaka, it gave a solid philosophical base to Hinian form of Buddhism. I'll talk about Hinian and Mahayan later, but as of now, but Mahayan form of Buddhism, when it was initially, and it is said that Mahayan form of Buddhism, it originated in the southern part of India. I mean, somewhere around Deccan. Okay, somewhere around Deccan. It originated somewhere around Deccan. Now it is said that this Mahayan form of Buddhism, when it was started initially, okay, when it was started initially, it was not very popular. I mean, many historians say, but it became extremely popular when a solid philosophical basis was provided to the Mahayan form of to the Mahayan form of Buddhism by a person by the name of Nagarjuna. And he gave a concept which is known as Shunyavad. He gave the concept of Shunyavad, which is also known as Madhyamika Marg. And this, when he gave this concept, so this is considered to be the philosophical basis of Mahayana form of Buddhism. And the moment Mahayana form of Buddhism got this philosophical basis, it became popular. So every major religion has to have a philosophical basis. Okay, what is the meaning of philosophical basis? I mean, philosophy contains things like what will happen, okay, what will happen after we die. Okay, it contains what? Metaphysical things. Okay, metaphysical things. So like I was saying, in total, we have 108 Upanishads. Okay. Now, in say every Upanishad among these four Upanishads, some of you might have heard of Mundaka Upanishads. Why is Mundaka Upanishad? Why is Mundaka Upanishad famous? Because Satyameva Jayate, okay, which is so very important, okay, which is so very important in in independent India. The motto of Satyameva Jayate, that is truth alone triumphs, that has been taken from Mundaka Upanishad. But the question here is the famous dialogue between Nachiketa and Yama. Okay, Nachiketa and Yama is mentioned in which of the following Upanishads? The answer would be Kathopanishad, which deals with this Upanishad. It basically deals with the concept of immortality. It basically deals with the concept of immortality, because as we all know, Yama is known as the god of death in Hinduism. Okay, he looks after the afterlife. Now, moving on to the next question. Who among the following was a Brahmavadini who composed some hymns of the Vedas? It was asked in 1995. Who among the following Who among the following was a Brahmavadini who composed some hymns of the Vedas? And the options are Lopamudra, Gargi, Leelavati, Savitri. See, it's a very interesting thing. During the early Vedic age, or during the Rig Vedic age, many female writers contributed, or many female writers composed hymns of the Rig Veda. Okay, many female writers, like Lopamudra was one such writer. There was another writer by the name of Maitri. Okay, there was another writer by the name of Indrani. So all these writers are female writers who are said to have contributed immensely to Rig Veda. Now, the question is, see, this is very important, which again goes to show the special status. Okay, which again goes to show the special status enjoyed by the people, by the women, which again goes to show the high status or the special status being given to women during the Rig Vedic period. But things started, changing during the later Vedic period. Okay, and the answer to this question would be, who among the following was a Brahmavadini? The answer to this question would be Lopamudra. And what is the meaning of Brahmavadini in simple words? Brahmavadini was that woman who received all her Vedic education before her marriage. Okay, Brahmavadini refers to that Vedic woman who received all her, refers to that woman who received all her Vedic education even before her marriage by staying at her father's home. Okay, that is the meaning of Brahmavadini. Now, moving on to the next question. Now we have entered the Mauryan period, a very, very important period, and you know, this period will be handled in the next class. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your patience, and see you all in my next class. Thank you so much.